Alchemo said he didn't know. Ryan Romano slouched in his chair, the Saturn armor's weight making it creak. Vulcan sat beside him, frowning at a portable computer. Ryan asked Alchemo for more details, addressing him sarcastically as the great keeper of knowledge. The cabin's metal walls thrummed as Alchemo transferred data to the Saturn armor's computer. Ryan watched a copy of his bioscan appear on his helmet's lens, showing his organs and bones as violet as a plum. Alchemo reported that, according to the scanners, Ryan was an average monocolor violet genome with no genetic anomalies, so any eccentricity was his own fault. Ryan realized he wasn't a psycho, at least not conventionally, and considered that good news. He asked how Alchemo explained the chic jet black particles surrounding his body during frozen time. Alchemo replied sarcastically that he didn't know. Ryan told him not to bring Socrates into it. Alchemo complained that whenever he developed a theory on powers and elixirs, Ryan invalidated it and then gave up. Vulcan admitted that the armor's scanners recorded the black flux particles, but she didn't know what to make of the readings because they kept changing. Ryan asked if the particles followed quantum superposition, with results changing depending on the observation method. Vulcan clarified that the data changed after being recorded. Vulcan turned her laptop toward Ryan, showing shifting lines of codes and symbols. She explained that the substance actively refused to be categorized and passively altered reality when she insisted, or else Ryan had gained a second power that falsified her data. Alchemo jumped to the conclusion it was a blue power, but Ryan said he could still tell black from blue. The cyborg complained that none of it made sense and questioned how he could find logic in a situation that lacked any. Vulcan theorized that if their theory about elixirs was correct, Ryan had developed a link to the black world, perhaps even a secondary power, and urged him to try it out. Ryan froze time, black and violet particles floating around him while his other self appeared in a corner, advancing slowly. He glanced at his hands with black spots swirling around them, then raised them at Alchemo, shouting unlimited power and wagging his fingers like a maniac. Nothing happened, no black lightning, no antimatter blast, no cosmic power. When time resumed, Ryan said he couldn't figure out anything and that either he didn't have a second power or needed to understand it before using it. Vulcan called it disappointing but sounded playful. She asked if he still produced particles without the armor. Ryan said he did not produce more black flux without the Saturn armor and that his main power had not mutated, his time stop worked fine, and his violet phantom hadn't changed. His save point shouldn't have moved forward in time, though he could only check by resetting, which he was in no hurry to do. Vulcan theorized that the black flux worked on another level than physical reality. Alchemo grunted, skeptical about believing in souls. Vulcan pointed out that a genome like Geist had no DNA for his elixir to cling to yet persisted as a ghost, and that something similar had happened with Ghoul before Ryan's slime friend killed him. Ryan noted that Ghoul's remains hadn't risen after Darkling threw them up, proving even immortals could die, and wondered how black flux would react to an inviolable object like lightning. But Ryan needed information that even Mecron's databases couldn't provide, knowledge from the same place where he might find a cure for the psycho syndrome. He resolved to take a winter vacation next time around. Their conversation was interrupted when Shorty opened the cabin door in full power armor and announced they were surfacing. Vulcan closed her laptop and said it was time to put on her supersuit. Ryan complimented her immense culture as her greatest quality and asked if she was coming with them. She shook her head, saying that was where they parted ways due to boss orders, but she would scramble Dynami's communications on her way out to help a little. Ryan expressed disappointment and urged her not to let the patriarchy tell her what to do and to fight the system with them. She replied that she liked him, but not enough to disobey Augustus, whom she described as more lethal than Ebola. Len asked what was happening and if it was about the carnival, worried the last Loops event might repeat. Vulcan said no, and mentioned a rabbit cryptid on the news that was actually a self-replicating killer robot assaulting their HQ. Augustus had asked everyone to mobilize because the robots were replicating faster than he could kill them. Vulcan glanced knowingly at Ryan and asked if he had anything to do with it. He lied that he wanted to rule the world, not destroy it. She whispered into his robotic antennae that she was a genius and a genius, warning him not to mess with her. Ryan assured her she should be fine. Vulcan noted that, given her height, the plushies would probably mistake her for a child. She advised Ryan to skip town afterward to avoid ending up on opposing sides, then rose with a grin and the laptop under her arm, saying she had fun. Ryan agreed. Vulcan glanced at Len and warned her not to hang out too much with Ryan, predicting he would live fast and die young. Len replied sheepishly that she would keep that in mind. Vulcan left the room with a shrug. Alchemo waited for Vulcan to disappear before turning to Ryan and asking what he wanted to do. Ryan explained that Alchemo and T would stay behind on the submarine for a quick evacuation, hoping to raid Lab 66 and flee before Dynamis mobilized. He instructed Alchemo to keep sending brain maps to Livia in their absence. Alchemo said he had already sent the requested brain maps along with a copy of Saren's molecular structure, but asked if he was forgetting anything. Ryan knew he was. Ryan bluntly called Alchemo an asshole, causing the cyborg to flinch. He explained that he had befriended assholes before and had learned to let go of the past and move on. The courier struggled to find the right words while Len watched silently. Ryan acknowledged the pain caused by Alchemo's past actions, but emphasized that the Alchemo who had betrayed him was dead, and this one was alive. Despite feeling wrong, Ryan decided to give him a second chance and instructed him to send his own brain map to Livia. After a brief pause, Alchemo thanked Ryan. Ryan warned him that there would be no third chance and urged him not to waste it. Alchemo promised not to, then excused himself with a nod. Once Alchemo had left the cabin, Len expressed concern about bringing so many people along. Ryan admitted it was unwise but preferred to extend a hand and risk disappointment rather than remain alone. Len remarked that fear and paranoia led nowhere. When Ryan asked if she was ready, Len admitted she was not but said she could not delay any longer. Ryan searched the cabin for a black cashmere poncho and put it on over his armor, asking Len how he looked. She giggled and called him cute. Ryan joked about hoping she had said fearsome, then referenced leprophobia, a word even he had to look up. Len said it was nice to hear his bad jokes again, noting he had been somber lately. Ryan admitted he found it easier to laugh at pain than cry, and that his eternal life no longer felt painful with Len by his side. She raised her pinky and promised to stay together till the end, which Ryan reciprocated. They emerged from the Mecran submarine and walked on its metal hull, facing a burning New Rome. The vehicle hovered above the waters south of the blockaded harbor, while the remaining gangsters had moved onto small boats. Gunshots, lasers, and missiles echoed from Rust Town as Corpo troops assaulted the bunker. Toasty and the bunker's robots had been deployed to occupy Dynami's forces, while Ryan's group planned to sneak into the HQ from behind. Ryan had made a copy of Toasty's AI to ensure its survival if needed. A flying sun shining in Rust Town's polluted skies complicated matters. Like in the previous loop, the Carnival had allied with Dynamis. Ryan wondered if this alliance was temporary to deal with a bigger threat or if something else was at play. Surprisingly, New Rome looked relatively unscathed despite some fires and alarms urging people to stay indoors. Ryan wondered if the plushie had become tamer with time, but Len quickly pointed out Mount Augustus, which had turned white. From afar, the hill resembled an erupting volcano covered in an endless tide of white fur, like a swarm of enormous rats converging on the summit. Crimson lightning, water arms, lasers, and energy blasts shot in all directions. The ground battle was likely apocalyptic. Ryan struggled to understand the plushie's motives, but recalled that it had vanished after hunting Acid Rain during the Augusti loop, whom Augustus had slain. Perhaps the creature wanted to continue that confrontation or had grown bored of helpless targets and sought bigger prey. Or maybe it simply wanted to make a god bleed. Ryan had wisely asked Livia to evacuate to a secure location, knowing there would be no turning back. The plush apocalypse had begun. Ryan noted that whoever won, the city would be ruined. If Mob Zeus prevailed, he would discover Hargrave's presence and likely go on a rampage. If the plushies won, they would overwhelm the city on a tide of blood. Len asked if this had happened before. Ryan laughed nervously and admitted it had, but insisted it was not important. Len pressed him, and he confessed it would be the 12th time he destroyed the world, promising there would be no 13th. Frank interrupted, shouting that they were ready to storm Mexico at Ryan's command. Frank's head peaked above the water since he had not taken a small boat due to his weight. Mosquito, drinking artificial blood, expressed doubt about their mission. Ryan addressed his troops on the small boats. Only a handful had survived so far, though most heavy hitters remained. Aside from Agent Frank, who was determined to fight until every enemy was dead, most allies looked disgruntled. Ryan declared their mission was to write history with blood, starting with New Rome and then the world. Rakshasa complained about wanting artificial blood juice. The land made a garbled sound that the Tiger Man seemed to understand perfectly. The Tiger Man questioned why they had abandoned the knockoff factory after suffering to acquire it. Ryan pointed to Mount Augustus and explained they had data to create a new factory and enough stockpiled supplies in the submarine to last months. Acid Rain asked why they didn't leave immediately, expressing doubt about picking another fight. Ryan explained they needed Dr. Tyranno to develop a cure and that he was in the HQ. Their plan was to get him Torch Lab 66 and then leave. Ryan hoped to borrow Dr. Tyranno long enough to develop a cure for psychos to use in the next loop. They could relocate to Antarctica, escaping Dynamis and checking on the Alchemist's base simultaneously. Mosquito warned that the Corpos heroes had the living sun with them, a being capable of moving faster than sound and challenging Augustus, urging retreat while they still could. Mongrel agreed, suggesting they wait for a better opportunity to get cured. Saren interrupted with a minor shockwave, commanding attention as she declared Ryan a gambler who always wins by cheating. She reminded them that Adam had spent weeks trying to crack the bunker, but Ryan had done it in a fortnight. Saren praised Ryan for outsmarting Dynamis, Augustus, and the Carnival, insisting this time would be no different. Frank roared his support, and Saren declared that Ryan brought a nuclear bomb to a gunfight and won with an alien, refusing to bet against a cheater. She urged them to follow him and burn the house down. Frank applauded, followed by the other psychos, their doubts vanishing. Ryan thanked Saren for her faith, promising to reward it. Saren warned him to remember his promise or she would haunt him, to which Ryan vowed to repeat his term as many times as needed to fulfill his campaign promises, guiding them with a benevolent iron hand. The submarine's hull opened, revealing a metal platform with Vulcan's mech standing proudly and T beside it. Vulcan expressed concern upon seeing Mount Augustus. The doll hugged Len goodbye, whispering she would pray for his success. Len whispered back, asking her to take care of the children if he didn't return. T promised to provide tech support from afar and urged Ryan not to take too many risks. Ryan joked about taking risks anyway, and T warned him not to let a building collapse on him again, as she wouldn't be there to dig him out. The plan was simple. Mosquito would carry Ryan and Len to attack from above while the others attacked from below. Acid rain would provide cover with weather alteration. The land would destroy roads to delay reinforcements, and Frank would force a path inside. The rest would provide support. Ryan believed in himself to improvise once inside Lab 66. Ryan asked them to take care of his cat in his absence. Vulcan warned of a radiation spike detected west. Fallout was coming. Ryan asked how long until fallout arrived. Vulcan estimated 1 to 2 hours. Ryan resolved to make a new Chernobyl, and his men chuckled, inspired by Saren's speech. Ryan glanced at Dynami's HQ on the horizon and ordered his troops to follow him and take the tower. They crashed into Dynami's HQ like Fat Man into Nagasaki. Vulcan had equipped the Saturn armor with a jetpack, but Len's aquatic suit lacked this, so Mosquito carried her as they smashed through the windows too fast for security drones to react. Ryan preferred to enter through the Kashmir production facility on the 20th floor but chose the 60th floor instead, the last without reinforced windows. Facing an army of office workers behind desks and guards in power armor protecting 2 elevators, Ryan announced they had a search warrant. Automated cameras focused on them while acid rain clouds formed outside. Alarms sounded, and workers hid under desks as guards opened fire. Ryan walked forward like a Terminator, shrugging off laser attacks. Mosquito grabbed a desk and threw it at the guards. The land caused a minor quake, and other meta. Gang members assaulted the building from the reception hall. Ryan spotted Devilry rushing from the neighboring Optimate's tower, flames streaming from her feet. Acid raindrops turned to steam on her skin. Len shouted for cover and used her rifle to close the windows with a wall of water. Devilry vaporized it with a fireball and prepared to incinerate the floor. Ryan disarmed the remaining guards with time, stops, and armored fists. Mosquito flew out the window as metal panels closed behind him, pulverizing the ceiling. His attempt to tackle Devilry failed as she dodged and prepared a fireball blast. Acid rain teleported behind Devilry, shot her feet, and vanished. Devilry lost control briefly, allowing Mosquito to slam her against the building. Ryan left his men to handle Devilry while he disarmed the remaining guards and had Len trap them inside water bubbles. Once metal panels covered every window, Ryan tossed a desk aside to reveal an office manager hiding beneath, a golden keycard dangling from his neck. Ryan grabbed the card and dragged the terrified man toward the elevator. He asked the doll if Incognito was ready. She confirmed, and data appeared on Ryan's lenses as he examined the keycard. Earlier in the loop, Ryan had sent Psycho Incognito to infiltrate Dynami's HQ. Incognito's blue ability allowed him to appear as anyone, though he couldn't fool all security systems. Combined with Ryan's hacking, Incognito had gained access to the building's main servers. With T and Alchemo providing long-distance support from the submarine, the group swiftly reprogrammed the building's access authorizations. Ryan informed his team through his helmet's intercom that all keycards should now grant access to any floor. He then asked Saren about her status, to which she replied that they would catch up shortly despite the shockwaves and explosions audible on her end. Ryan applied the keycard to the elevator's security system, causing the doors to open. The president took the keycard from the terrified manager and left him alone. He thanked the manager for his cooperation as the elevator doors closed behind him and Len. His genius friend selected floor 66 and the lift ascended. Len asked if Ryan thought they were expected, readying her water rifle. Ryan Ryan confirmed that the heavy hitters had moved to Rust Town, leaving mostly juniors and devilry on standby. He wondered how many heroes Dynamis still had to oppose the invaders, noting that Wyvern's departure had triggered resignations among IL, Miglior, and private security. When the elevator doors opened to Lab 66, Ryan anticipated facing a battalion of corporate stormtroopers to test his armor's power. Instead, he found himself beneath the shadow of a colossal beast, an ancient titan from the lost magical land of Zhongguo, guarding a reinforced blast door too heavy for even a giant to lift. The monster's head reached the metal ceiling, its fur white as bones and black as its soul. The giant bear addressed Ryan as a villain, announcing their meeting at last. The fools at Dynamis had summoned the panda. Wardrobe complimented Ryan's new armor and Wardrobe's own outfit, delighting him. Ryan and Len stepped calmly into a concrete hall separating the floor's entry points from the thick blast door. Cameras and automated turrets hung from the ceiling, monitoring the intruders. 3 fearsome guardians blocked the United States forces' path. The panda, Ryan's most powerful rogue, Wardrobe, dressed in a black and white Brioni tuxedo, and Reload, wielding a laser blade and eager for revenge. Ryan recognized Wardrobe's outfit and remarked on its resemblance to James Bond, to which Len joked about invading Canada next week. Len raised her weapon, warning them they were fighting on the wrong side. Reload snarled, accusing them of bringing New Rome to its knees and threatening it with a nuclear bomb. Ryan pointed out that Reload's boss had mass, marketed a psycho in a bottle, waiting beyond the blast door. Wardrobe and the panda winced at this, but Reload refused to believe Ryan, accusing him of fabricating evidence to mislead Wyvern. The panda declared he was the only one who could stop them, even if it meant allying with a lesser evil. Ryan wondered if the panda believed his words or if Dynamis had recruited anyone they could find. Wardrobe revealed that her girlfriend had been arrested for taking money from Ryan and threatened him with a Walther PPK, expressing Nora's anger at being used. Ryan promised to buy Nora's forgiveness with Australia, and Wardrobe countered that Nora would prefer France. Ryan assured her that for Nora, everything was on the table. Wardrobe said she would relay that when bringing Ryan in. Reload shouted in rage and charged at Ryan without regard for diplomacy. Ryan glanced at him with disdain while Len fired her water rifle, trapping Reload inside a bubble of pressurized water and disarming his laser blade. Wardrobe opened fire aiming for the Saturn armor's lenses, but Ryan dodged as Reload remained trapped in a cycle of drowning and rebirth. The panda tried to appear brave, raising his paws in a kung fu stance and declaring he would fight in justice's name. Ryan declared himself Saturn now, raising an authoritarian fist to the heavens and claiming godhood instead of presidency. The panda leaped at Ryan with all his might as Wardrobe provided cover fire, vowing that Ryan would not get past the panda. Ryan raised his hands, roaring as he prepared to meet his destiny. Suddenly, 2 bubbles of pressurized water appeared, trapping both the panda and Wardrobe. Len had shot them with her weapon, and despite pandas being good swimmers, this one struggled against the intense pressure. Wardrobe fared no better, though she had changed into a mermaid outfit to avoid passing out. Ryan sighed, glaring at Len and calling her Shorty. She asked why, and Ryan told her that while he loved her, she could not bubble all their problems away. Len replied that they were on a schedule and that her father was beyond the door. Ryan acknowledged this but urged her to appreciate the moment, comparing it to strolling through a garden without smelling the flowers. Defensive turrets opened fire on them but failed to pierce their armors. Ryan revealed Vulcan's hidden lasers and blasted the turrets to smithereens. Wardrobe then appeared wearing a toga and coral crown, wielding a trident of light with water swirling around it like a liquid snake, embodying Poseidon's costume. Before Wardrobe could use her weapon to free the trapped heroes, the courier swiftly disarmed her with a kick, causing the trident to vanish into dust and the water to fall to the ground. Yuki switched to a ninja costume and leapt away from the courier, dodging another bubble from Len. Ryan raised a hand to stop his sidekick from interfering and instructed Len to open the door, expressing eagerness for a duel and promising to take good care of Wardrobe. Wardrobe declared that Ryan underestimated her power, picked up Reload's laser blade, and switched to a fencer's costume. Ryan promised they would free Wardrobe's girlfriend on their way out, assuring that he did not endanger his nemesis family and asking her not to hate him for the mistake. Wardrobe responded that she believed him and that Enrique had confirmed it. She added that if they had not had Nora, she would have left like Felix. Wardrobe made only a token effort to defend the place, keeping up appearances without deploying the Apocalypse suit or the Augustus costume. Ryan decided to turn the encounter into a performance. He revealed hidden switchblades concealed in his armor's arms, causing Wardrobe's eyes to widen as she realized she would get the duel of her dreams. He declared he would show her the true nature of the Oval Office. The 2 duelists appraised each other for a solid minute before charging at each other with roars. Len ignored them both mouth and began cutting open the blast door with a stream of pressurized water. A solid laser clashed against Mekrin, made steel, neither blade able to penetrate the other. The duo danced to a silent tune, with Ryan humming Duel of the Fates to himself. Wardrobe leaped, sidestepped, and pierced forward, while the president pushed, smashed, and forced her back. Their blades drew lines in the concrete walls, sending sparks everywhere as they clashed. The deadly duel defied description. Wardrobe moved with the grace of water, channeling all sword masters who had ever lived, while Ryan fought with centuries of experience and a perfect style honed through countless iterations. They were evenly matched, but Saren had been right about one thing: Ryan cheated. He stopped time, and when it resumed, he pointed Wardrobe's own blade at her throat. The defeated hero stepped back in surprise, hitting the wall behind her. Ryan declared she was beaten and that it was useless to resist him, warning her not to make him cut off her hand. Wardrobe looked at him defiantly, refusing to surrender. When Ryan retracted his blades, discarded his sword, grabbed Wardrobe by the waist, and pulled her closer, he proposed marriage. Wardrobe covered her mouth in shock, while Len abruptly stopped cutting to look over her shoulder. Ryan ignored his childhood friend and focused on Wardrobe, telling her she was the perfect partner who understood him and that together they could rule the galaxy as husband and wife. Wardrobe apologized with tears in her eyes and hands on his cashmere poncho, explaining that despite their raw sexual chemistry, she was already taken. Ryan reassured her softly that as a Mormon, he could make bigamy work. She gently touched his helmet's left side and shook her head, rejecting harems on her watch. Ryan's hopes of a hero, supervillain romance were dashed. She was too loyal and pure to embrace the dark side. Wardrobe reassured him in a low voice that they could remain good archnemeses, though she might soon be fired, before shouting that she would never join him. Ryan responded by deftly hitting her pressure points in the chest and neck, causing her to collapse in his arms like a sponge, and carefully laying her against the nearest wall. By then, Len had carved a circle in the blast door, though the enormous metal gate refused to fall. She asked Ryan what they had just witnessed. Ryan sobbed, calling it a tragedy and lamenting that Wardrobe was already taken. Shorty shook her head, sulking for some reason, and asked Ryan to help kick down the door. Ryan and Len tried, but neither armored warrior was strong enough to breach the thick metal. Ryan hesitated to use his chest blaster when the elevators opened behind him. He half expected a battalion of Dynami's men to ambush them, but instead Saren and Mongrel entered the hall. Hazmat Girl glanced at the room, raised her hands at the metal door, and commanded it to move out. Ryan and Len hastily obeyed just before Saren blasted a hole into the next room. The group stepped into Lab 66, an immaculate, sterilized white room 50 meters long and 20 wide, where metallic clinks echoed as automated medical drones tended to machines and terminals. A claustrophobic medical assembly line stretched as far as they could see, continuing into the next room. Colored knockoff elixir bottles emerged from a metal hole beside a door equipped with a bioscanner. Robotic arms stamped the bottles with Dynami's logo and moved them into crates ready for delivery. Ryan scanned the area for guards or defenders but found none, deducing that Dynami's trusted only machines inside the facility, likely due to the danger of elixir contamination or theft. Len asked Saren where the others were. Saren scoffed and said Frank was climbing up the other shaft because he was too big for the elevator, and the others were holding the line downstairs. Mongrel examined the next room and asked where the genius in charge was. Ryan guessed the genius was probably beyond the door at the end of the assembly line, but his keycard didn't work on the door's bioscanner. He radioed the VP, asking to blow the door open, joking that he could smell reptilian immigrants behind it. Suddenly, acid rain called through Ryan's intercom, warning that Hargraves was on the roof, fighting Mosquito. Ryan tensed, recognizing the name. Before he could react further, the entrance hall's ceiling collapsed as someone smashed through the floors above like a drill, blowing dust into the laboratory. Saren, Len, and Mongrel formed a defensive perimeter around Ryan. The Saturn armor sounded an alarm, detecting an abnormal amount of radiation flowing into the room. A towering shadow emerged from the smoke, tossing aside Mosquito's charbroiled corpse as acid raindrops slipped inside the building. Alphonse Fallout Manata stepped past the blast door into the laboratory, his hands glowing with deadly radiation, declaring it was time to die. Atom Smasher wasted no words and went straight for the kill. His glowing hands unleashed a stream of red particles at the presidential guard. Saren reacted quickly, retaliating with a shockwave that collided with the blasts in the middle of the room, shattering all the knockoff bottles on the production line. Ryan froze time, black and violet flux floating out of his armor as he dragged his allies away from the elixir shower. Even with armor and regular dosing on the juice, any drop seeping through a crack would ruin everything. The courier had anticipated a fight with Fallout and prepared accordingly. His and Len's suits had been reinforced against heat and radiation, allowing them to survive sustained exposure. The Saturn armor could probably withstand a close encounter with Leo Hargraves. Ryan guessed that Saren's shockwaves could match the nuclear cyborg's weaker particle beams, likely because they both drew energy from the red dimension. Fallout had demonstrated in Malta that his power could rival an A-bomb, but Ryan had no idea how far his abilities and durability extended, nor did he find blueprints of the cyborg's armor in Dynami's database or a way to hack it. Despite this, Ryan welcomed the challenge and relied on a few tricks. When time resumed, the production line was drenched in multicolored fluids, and the robotic arms preparing the bottles had short-circuited, though the power armors in the room continued functioning. Alphonse Manata aimed his right arm's energy minigun at Len and Ryan, declaring they should have been killed years ago to complete the family set, having suspected they would be troublesome. Shorty raised her water rifle in response, calling this payback for having been killed once before. Len and Saren attacked Fallout before he could fire, Len using a stream of pressurized water and Saren a shockwave. Alphonse raised his left hand, expanding a shield of crimson particles to protect himself, then opened fire with his minigun, unleashing a volley of plasma shots. The projectiles tore through walls and machines, forcing everyone to dodge. Mongrel and Shorty ducked out of the way, but Ryan froze time to spare Saren 5 holes in her suit. Ryan warned Saren that if he kept saving her, people would start talking, but she snarled back to focus on taking down Alphonse without help. Mongrel used an aerokinetic blast to propel himself toward the ceiling and threw a fireball past Fallout's particle shield from his vantage point. The flames heated the metal armor but failed to inflict damage as Alphonse slowly advanced, and the reinforced walls began to crumble. Ryan ordered his troops to keep Fallout busy while he dashed forward, forcing him to raise his shield against shockwaves, flames, and pressurized water, leaving his back exposed. The courier stopped time, and a purple phantom raced after him as he crossed dozens of meters in a dash, dodging frozen plasma bolts while trying to devise a plan. One of his devices might take down Fallout, but the cyborg's armor could have a countermeasure. The group needed to soften him up first. After bending a corner around the room and with the ghost nearly catching up, Ryan unpaused time and activated his armor's chest blaster, unleashing a searing white burst of energy. The recoil almost threw him back, and the heat destroyed his cashmere poncho. The blast hit Alphonse in the back, propelling him forward like a cannonball, tearing the minigun from his arm and crashing him into the reinforced door. The wall collapsed under the impact, and Fallout continued into the next room. Ryan coughed, his chest burning. Saren mused that was what a drone strike looked like, and Ryan replied that sometimes a leader must get his hands dirty. Len warned that Fallout was not dead yet as she stepped into the next room and let out a horrified wail. The group followed and froze. The next room contained a massive factory with a ceiling that likely encroached on the floor above. A maze of machinery and tangled pipes formed the assembly lines, bordered by a catwalk wide enough for a battalion to march in formation. Strange devices covered in bulbs and flashing lights thrummed as they produced knockoff elixirs. Above the production line, a dozen naked humans floated in glass containers like light bulbs atop metal altars. Tubes injected thick red blood intravenously into their backs and pumped out elixir-colored liquids into the machinery. Ryan's eyes stopped on the closest prisoner, a muscled woman with black hair and white dragon scales on her neck, Wyvern. He also noticed a carbon copy of Devilry, a feathered man identified as Windsweep, the Tempest knockoff's template, and others he did not recognize. One pod contained a half-formed embryo of a panda-human hybrid. They were modified clones of the knockoff templates, transformed into living organ processors. Bloodstream's fluids passed into them, absorbing their genetic material before being processed into knockoffs. Saren and Mongrel reacted with disgust, and Len's hands trembled on her water rifle as she followed the blood pipes through the walls toward another room behind a reinforced door. Dr. Tyranno worked behind a large control panel near the cloning pods, typing with his reptilian claws on a keyboard adapted to his saurian biology. He briefly looked up at the intruders with supreme disinterest and told them he was busy and to take it outside and come back later, claiming he was on the verge of a breakthrough. Ryan accused Tyranno of cloning the panda, calling him a maniac. Tyranno blamed the kids' division for their obsession with furry mammals. Len snarled at Alphonse Manata, whose crimson particles flowed from his back where Ryan had hit him. She accused him of causing all that pain for a fistful of euros. Alphonse shrugged off fireballs thrown by Mongrel as his metal shoulders opened to reveal rocket launchers, declaring it was all for the dream. Fallout fired a dozen rockets without regard for collateral damage. Ryan attempted to stop time but canceled the effect immediately when his past self appeared nearby. The armor extended his time stop but also increased his cooldown period. The president activated the suit's laser weapons while shielding Len with his body, with Saren assisting in destroying the projectiles before they could reach them. Stray shrapnel ripped holes in Saren's suit and Mongrel's chest. Explosions shook the lab as Alphonse's rockets hit the ceiling, assembly line, and cloning pods. One rocket incinerated the panda's misshapen duplicate, while another damaged pipes, causing blood to drip onto the catwalk. Though Len's armor remained undamaged, she looked at the red fluid with fear and disgust. Dr. Tyranno shouted at Alphonse to stop, diving beneath his control panel to avoid a rocket, warning that he would destroy the laboratory. Atom Smasher snarled that he would stop only when they were dead and continued firing. Rockets struck the ceiling and tore holes in the catwalk, causing the entire floor to tremble. The wounded Mongrel dove aside to avoid another projectile, while Ryan took a hit to the chest. The Saturn armor absorbed the impact. Ryan worried about the lab's internal structural integrity, recalling that the architect had designed Lab 66 to survive even a building collapse but had not mentioned resistance to internal damage. When Fallout ran out of projectiles, he raised his glowing hands toward Len to blast her. Ryan, having reached his cooldown period, froze time and punched Fallout in the glass dome protecting his head. The blow cracked the reinforced glass, making the Dynami's cyborg stumble back as his particle beams instead melted the steel ceiling. Fallout declared that the glass dome did not protect him and revealed red particles similar to Ryan's own escaping from the crack, the crimson skull behind it scowling and radiating nuclear fire as the air shimmered with heat. He proclaimed himself the hand that splits the atom and the light that slays life, his fists glowing crimson as a promise of death and cancer. Ryan revealed his forearm blades and claimed immortality. Alphonse attempted to grab the courier's head with his glowing hand, but Ryan dodged and countered with a punch. Fallout deflected the blow and countered with a particle beam to Ryan's face, who ducked the attack and called him a minion. Mongrel, powering through injuries, launched an aerokinetic blast at Fallout's left knee, causing the Colossus to stumble. Ryan rammed his fist and blade through the cyborg's helmet. The glass dome shattered, releasing red particles, but Ryan's retractable blade also broke upon impact, likely weakened from a previous clash. Fallout seized the moment to headbutt Ryan, unleashing an energy pulse that sent the courier flying backward. The Saturn armor resisted the shock. Ryan lay on the floor, vision blurred, as Alphonse loomed over him with the remains of his melting helmet erupting crimson nuclear fire, resembling a Terminator emerging from flames. A stream of pressurized water struck Fallout from the side, heating into steam but providing a brief respite. Len ordered Riri to back off from behind Tyranno's control panel, while Mongrel flanked Fallout with air blasts. Saren struggled to cover holes in her suit as leaking gas rusted machinery and the floor. Ignoring the distractions, Fallout raised his armored foot to crush Ryan's head. Ryan froze time, kicked Alphonse in the chest to make him stumble, and rolled away to safety. Despite the time stop, Fallout's radioactive presence triggered warning messages on Ryan's armor, indicating the danger of proximity. As Ryan rose, he noticed that the black flux he produced devoured Fallout's crimson variant like black holes consuming light. Deciding to use his trump card, Ryan opened a compartment in his armor's backpack and tossed a small black sphere at Fallout. Upon impact, the sphere expanded into biomechanical goo that spread over Fallout's skin and armor, repurposing his steel to restrain the red genome. Fallout snarled in anger, but the cyborg suit had no defense against the hostile takeover. Ryan gloated that the nanomachines, originally designed by Mechren for material extraction in radioactive environments, now served as a capture device against nuclear threats. Within seconds, Fallout was encased in a black goo coffin, unable to move or fire beams. Dr. Tyranno cautiously peeked over his computer as Ryan's group relaxed slightly, hoping the device would work against Augustus as well. Suddenly, Fallout overrode the safeties, his body producing increasing light that escaped through cracks in the nanomachine shell, making the air oppressive. Ryan's suit alerted him to the rising heat, and he panicked as the nanomachines corroded under the red flux. Fallout warned that Ryan would die if he did not stop. Ryan ordered his team to cool Fallout down. Len bathed him with water, and Mongrel blasted him with pressurized air, but neither was effective. The lab's fire sprinklers activated, but the liquid turned to steam before reaching Fallout. Cracks formed rapidly in the nanomachine coffin, leaking particle beams. One beam struck Ryan in the chest, heating his armor, while another split Mongrel in half at near light speed. Recognizing the danger, Ryan froze time, dashed to Saren, grabbed her by the intact parts of her suit, and dove behind the assembly line for cover. When time resumed, instant, the nanomachines melted into a charred shell. Particle beams erupted from Fallout's body, shattering the prison from within and cutting through the ceiling and catwalk. Metal plates fell as the lab began collapsing. Dr. Tyranno shouted for Ryan to calm down, warning that he would kill them all. Perhaps restrained by the risk to his lead scientist, Fallout ceased firing wildly. Ryan peeked from cover to see Alphonse Manata had shed the nanomachines, armor, and humanity, becoming a blackened skeleton surrounded by incandescent flames and red flux particles, the ground melting beneath him. Fallout's voice boomed like the heart of a burning star as he called out for Quicksave to come out and fight. Ryan realized Fallout was as durable as Hargraves and that he had drastically underestimated Dynami's ace in the hole. Fallout could have vaporized them and the entire building if he had not feared destroying his own headquarters. Ryan regretted not asking Mecron's AIs to develop a superweapon to neutralize the living A-bomb. Saren whispered to Ryan, asking if there was anything else that could kill Fallout, her suit leaking so much that the fingers had flattened. The courier kept a few meters away to prevent her from corroding his armor. Ryan admitted there was none that wouldn't risk killing everyone present, when footsteps echoed from the previous room. Frank appeared, having climbed up the elevator shaft and entered the laboratory, his body absorbing machinery pieces on contact. He glanced at Alphonse Manata's otherworldly redness and immediately connected the dots. Frank roared with patriotism, declaring he knew it was all connected, a Soviet Mexican. He had uncovered the true conspiracy behind everything. Alphonse blasted Frank with streams of red particles, melting the giant's outer layers. The nuclear genome emitted energy from his chest, mouth, and entire body in any direction he wished. Despite the radiation, Frank powered through and tackled Alphonse like a football player. Both colossi crashed into the wreckage of the Wyvern clone's pod, trading blows powerful enough to shake the room. Ryan hoped his bodyguard might turn the tide. However, Frank's metal hands softened whenever they hit Fallout due to the intense heat and Alphonse's unique biology granting him heightened resilience. Like Mr. Sunshine, Alphonse had become a living nuclear core. Meanwhile, the factory's ceiling kept raining metal panels. Ryan told Saren to stand still and gestured at Len to stay hidden as they needed to run before the ceiling collapsed. Hazmat Girl grunted, telling them not to waste time on her and Frank, urging Ryan and Saren to go. Frank growled in pain as Fallout grabbed his metal head and started to melt it. Saren shouted from behind the assembly line, blasting Fallout off Frank with a shockwave. The radioactive genome bled light and stumbled but did not lose balance. She urged Ryan to take the cure data inside the place while they kept Fallout busy. Ryan protested that it was suicide, assisting her by firing his chest laser at Fallout. The red genome formed a shield of crimson particles around himself while Frank regained his footing. Ryan warned they would get buried alive if Fallout didn't kill them first. Hazmat Girl glanced briefly at her ally's corpse, acknowledging the possibilities his elixir represented. She declared that now Mongrel was dead. None of it mattered anymore. If Fallout killed them, all their efforts were for nothing. She had accepted the loop was a lost cause. Ryan protested that their lives mattered but almost stumbled as the ground trembled. The constant explosions had weakened the factory's foundations. Saren snarled at him, rejecting the name he used and asking why he wouldn't leave. Ryan responded that he was not Adam and could not let them sacrifice themselves for him. He reminded them he had promised to help and still could. As long as they lived, they could find a way, whether in Antarctica or elsewhere. Saren looked at Ryan in surprise and remained silent for a few seconds before making her decision. She told him to remember his vow next time around. Ryan's heart skipped a beat, fists clenched, and he asked for her real name. She looked at Fallout and replied, Bianca. She dashed at him like a suicide bomber while Ryan looked away as another friend went to die for him. He swore to save her next time before freezing time. Regrouping with Len, the courier grabbed Dr. Tyranno and slammed him against his control panel when time resumed. The dinosaur looked alarmed, breath short from the heat. Ryan ordered him to open the door to the next room immediately. Dr. Tyranno barely protested as Len put her water rifle against his chin, convincing him to comply. Ryan froze time again, carrying both Len and Tyranno across the room. He glanced at his allies with a freezing heart as Alphonse punched a hole inside a half, melted Frank's chest, releasing a cloud of gas from an empty hazmat suit. The ceiling below Fallout began to rust. When time resumed, Len asked why Dr. Tyranno had turned her father and created all these horrors. Dr. Tyranno admitted the knockoffs were just the first step of his plan. He was refining the substance to change not only the host species but its entire biological class, from mammal to reptile. Ryan realized the implication. Dr. Tyranno confirmed his intention to create a knockoff elixir that could permanently turn any human into a dinosaur. Ryan looked at the diluted, scaled furry, realizing he should have expected such a motive. Dr. Tyranno added that this transformation would be consensual, claiming becoming a superior reptile should be a fundamental mammalian right. Though Ryan wanted to hate him, he loved dinosaurs too. A loud crack echoed as the ceiling finally collapsed. Ryan barely forced Len and Tyranno inside a steel corridor before tons of steel and concrete buried the knockoff factory. Alphonse, Frank, and Saren vanished from sight, buried alive. Dust and smoke flowed into the corridor, debris closing the exit. Ryan and Len exchanged a silent glance, neither uttering a word. The others had earned their minute of silence. Ryan, Len, and Scaly reached the facility's heart after a short walk, arriving at a large, dimly lit atrium of thick steel and concrete. An enormous mechanical aquarium stood at its center, linked to complex medical devices, pipes, tubes, and a computer system. Inside swam a true Shoggoth, an eldritch blob more deformed than Darkling had ever been, a dark red protoplasmic slime as large as a house, a shapeless, twisted amoeba with temporary eyes forming on its putrid surface. If it had once been human, it was not apparent at first glance. Yet despite everything, Ryan recognized him. It was himself, in all his bloody, mutated glory. Len dropped her water rifle, rushing to touch the glass with her hand. The blob's eyes looked at his daughter, their reunion complete. In the end, blood called to blood. In 2016, Italy, Leonard Hargraves addressed his team in his human form, stating their target was Freddie Sabino, alias Bloodstream. Pictures of the man the psycho used to be appeared on the screen alongside the bloody abomination he had become. Short black hair, a tired face aged by stress, brown eyes, an unremarkable man with a terrible destiny. Hargraves explained that Freddie Sabino was born in 1980 in Otranto, Italy, to a fisherman and a housewife. He married young, dropped out of college when his girlfriend expected a child, then joined the Otranto Polizia Municipale, the only job he ever had. His wife abandoned him for another man before the previous Easter, leaving him to raise two young children alone, a daughter, Len, perhaps short for Lenora, and a son, Cesare. In short, there was nothing special about Freddie Sabino. Had the apocalypse not occurred, he might have lived a normal life, saved money, watched his children attend college, and perhaps remarried. Leo explained that although the alchemists sent wonder boxes to families or isolated individuals, a few elixirs ended up in law enforcement's hands on last Easter's Eve, usually mistaken for drugs or letter bombs. When the apocalypse began and genomes rampaged through Otranto, Freddie Sabino stole 2 elixirs from his police station and fled the city. Authorities would never know the intended recipients of these elixirs. Had they reached their owners, many tragedies might have been averted. Leo showed his team a phone picture of a bloody monster boarding a rusted car alongside 2 children no older than 12, stating that Sabino was active as a psycho as early as 2009. Reports indicated he traveled with his children since the late 2000s, though his son was only confirmed alive in 2012. Mr. Wave, a creature of living wavelengths and an odd member of the group, asked if the children had powers too. Matthias Martel, a 16-year-old who had joined the carnival after his mother's dementia to continue her work, confirmed the children were powerless. Ace nodded darkly, asserting that Sabino would have killed them if they were genomes. Leo continued, saying nothing indicated the children's complicity in their father's crimes. According to Pythia's psyche report, Bloodstream remained violently protective of his children even in his current state, but kept them dependent through social isolation, gaslighting, and physical abuse. Leo had seen many similar cases in London, where fathers convinced their children the world was against them and that only family could be trusted. He emphasized the need to ensure the children's safety, especially Len Sabino's, before returning to their target's capabilities. Bloodstream was a green/blue type. His green power granted complete control over his blood, allowing him to reshape it into weapons, create tentacles, and restructure his body. His blue power transformed him into pure information, potentially allowing computer system infiltration had he remained a pure blue. However, his powers mutated into a unique synergy. Bloodstream literally became his blood, with each blood cell hosting his consciousness, enabling him to reform as long as one cell remained. Only disintegration could kill him. Leonard guessed they needed his flames, and Leo confirmed this, revealing Bloodstream's ghastliest ability. If his blood cells entered another human circulatory system, he could take over like a virus, overwriting the host's DNA, mind, and memories. If Bloodstream touched someone, they were worse than dead. Leonard paused for emphasis, then told the team, "You are him." At the boathouse pier, Shorty wiped sweat from her forehead, proud of her work despite her blackened, dirty clothes. Ryan, standing beside her, doubted their chances of reaching Spain, let alone the USA. The boathouse smelled of rust and decaying paint, its ceiling threatening collapse. The 10-meter-long vessel floated in a pond with direct access to the Tyrrhenian Sea, a pineapple-shaped, clunky metal mass reminiscent of the Actinio II, one of the world's earliest submarines, which did not inspire confidence. confidence. Len pinched Ryan's arm, assuring him the Leica would work fine and that the autopilot estimated arrival in America within 12 days. Ryan squinted skeptically at her. She explained the name referred to the dog the Russians sent to space. Ryan reminded her that Leica died midway through the mission, accusing her of condemning them all. Len attempted to pinch him again, but Ryan dodged and grabbed her waist, kissing her neck. She gasped in surprise and whispered a protest, placing her hands on his. Ryan begged for a kiss on her cheeks, arguing they deserved it after weeks of non-stop work. Though she called him insane, Len gave in, agreeing to 5 minutes tops. They made out for 15 minutes, her hand in his hair, his on her back. Despite tasting of oil and salt water, Ryan did not care and would not have stopped for anything. When they broke apart, Len called the moment foolish, though her blushing cheeks contradicted her words. Their first night together had been a logistical nightmare, finding unexpired war pills and unused condoms, waiting for her father to wander away to avoid discovery, and figuring out the act itself, as no one had taught them the details. Their kisses and touches had been clumsy but eventually successful. For a moment, they had been alone in the world. Two halves made one. Ryan wanted more, but her father never let them out of sight for long since the carnival began hunting his clones. The teens settled for furtive kisses and caresses, always fearing discovery. This situation caused Ryan daily anguish. Len's father was always present, always between them, ruining their chance at happiness and causing trouble. Bloodstream had now decided the family would leave Europe and migrate to America. Ryan could not fathom the logic behind this decision but knew they had no choice. Porto Venere had once been a small coastal town with colored houses next to long piers. The locals abandoned it long before the group moved in. It was isolated enough to hide their base but close enough to Genoa for supply runs. Ryan was the only one leaving the house nowadays. Shorty worked on the submarine, and her father hid in their temporary home. The carnival attacked whenever Bloodstream went out in public, but Ryan could slip out unnoticed with precautions. As Ryan prepared to leave the boathouse through a small door, Len asked if he could bring back oranges and citruses to prevent scurvy. He agreed but froze when his hand reached the door lock and called to Shorty. She sighed and confirmed that everything on the sub was automated with no manual controls. She explained that although her power allowed much, scavenged boats were poor material sources, forcing her to sacrifice some features to make the submarine functional. Ryan asked what would happen if they encountered a problem during the journey. In the dim interior of the former boat club, Ryan listened as Shorty explained that the submarine would automatically redirect to the nearest shore in case of trouble, hoping their father would protect them in the meantime. Ryan warned Len that he worried more about her father than the sub's safety. Len bit her lip and crossed her arms, insisting her position hadn't changed despite Ryan's repeated pleas for her to run away with him and leave their father stranded. Ryan argued that the carnival would keep hunting their father, and as long as he lived, they would never be free. Len stubbornly replied that they wouldn't pursue them across the sea. Ryan countered that the carnival's leader, the living sun, could fly at supersonic speeds and even in space, while it would take them days to cross the ocean. Len insisted they hadn't found them yet and couldn't find them, though her words sounded more like a prayer. Ryan opened the door and moved through the building, guessing it had once been a boat club where wealthy people stored their ships, watched soccer on TV, and dined. Suddenly, a shrill voice called out, "Cesare!" chilling Ryan to the bone and freezing him in place. Following the voice to the dining room, Ryan found Bloodstream slouched on a tattered sofa in front of a shattered TV screen. Bloodstream gestured for Ryan to sit beside him and pointed at the TV, asking if he remembered Power Rangers. Despite the broken screen, Ryan indulged the delusion and affirmed he remembered. Bloodstream lamented that he had wished he had money to buy Ryan toys back then. Bloodstream leaned closer and told Ryan that Len was very sick, despite Ryan's protests that she looked healthy. Bloodstream raved about a poison inside them all, describing vivid nightmares of a living hell filled with pulsating floors, walls with mouths and eyes, and microscopic flies invading his lungs. He claimed Satan distributed bottles to poison humanity. Ryan remained silent, knowing better than to argue. Bloodstream spoke of cancer, referencing Ryan's grandmother's death, and likened it to insidious roots that could destroy the whole garden if removed incorrectly. He promised to find a way to operate on Len and make her healthy again. Ryan clenched his fists, knowing Bloodstream's lucidity was fading and that soon he might look to Ryan's daughter for sustenance. Bloodstream then sobbed, apologizing and expressing his love for Ryan and Len, admitting he had ruined everything. Bloodstream confessed he was sick too and feared what would happen if Ryan and Len died. Ryan looked at the sobbing, shifting monster with a mixture of pity and disgust, no longer fearing him. He gently placed a hand on Bloodstream's shoulder and promised to protect Len. This contact seemed to soothe Bloodstream, who spoke with shaky hope about their mother waiting for them on the other side of the ocean, dreaming of starting over in LA. Ryan lied in return, assuring him it would be alright. For a brief moment, Ryan allowed himself to believe Bloodstream could improve, that the man inside might regain control, and that he could live a peaceful life with Len. But the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Bloodstream's voice hardened as he declared that if Ryan and Len died, he would kill everyone and then himself, believing a world where children could die was not worth existing. He said they would all be together on the other side, and it couldn't be hell if they were together. Bloodstream then fell silent, staring at the shattered TV with a frightening intensity, like a psychotic shooter preparing for a crime. Ryan's hatred returned, directed at both Bloodstream and himself for pitying the monster even momentarily. He knew if a man had ever existed inside Bloodstream, the monster had devoured him long ago. After hesitating for 10 minutes, fearing he might return to find Len dead at her father's hands, Ryan left the house. The fresh air outside brought no comfort as he walked toward his bike with a bag on his back, haunted by the gnawing thought that Len would never make it to America alive. Ryan sensed the danger in the air. The proximity and isolation meant her father would lose control. He would weep and regret, but ultimately commit the terrible deed, whether during the trip or upon arrival. He was a ticking time bomb destined to explode one day. Bloodstream had to die, for Len's sake and everyone else's. Ryan opened his bag and examined the violet elixir he always kept inside. Bloodstream only detected elixirs in Genome's blood, so he would know the moment his adoptive son used the potion on himself. The liquid swirled inside the syringe like a promise of power and freedom. Perhaps it could grant Ryan a power stronger than Bloodstream's, unlikely, but he had no other options. A second sun flew across the skies, answering his prayers. The carnival screen shifted to a graphic representation of the possession process. A drop of blood infecting an adult man, spreading through his veins like an infection and devouring his organs from within. The skin soon ruptured to release the lifeblood, and Bloodstream was born again. Leo explained that Bloodstream infected blood like a virus, restructuring the body into a clone of himself, and likely had done so frequently that his current body was not original. All his copies shared his powers and formed a loose hive mind, like cells of a larger body. A boastful Genome asked if killing half of Bloodstream's clones would cause the others to fear him, likening it to Mecron. Leo replied it was close but not quite the same. To eliminate Bloodstream, they had to destroy all his copies completely, leaving nothing behind, not even a droplet. Each time they ambushed a clone, Leo would incinerate it and Stitch would sterilize the area afterward. Bloodstream was a lone wolf psycho, lacking a support network unlike others such as Adam the Ogre. The Cossack remarked that Bloodstream was a pack of his own. Leo confirmed that Bloodstream's clones never moved more than a mile apart, likely to maintain their hive mind. If they isolated the doubles from bystanders, they could eliminate them one by one, like a scalpel cutting out a tumor before it proliferated. Ace asked if they knew where the clones were, noting no intel in Pythia's data. Matthias nodded, having followed their trail. The family traveled across Italy irregularly, never staying long in one place, but were last sighted near the Alps. Leonard instructed that once they engaged, they must pursue Bloodstream relentlessly and keep him away from populated areas. Ace asked Stitch if Bloodstream's power had limits and if the biological samples had been examined. Stitch confirmed he had been waiting to fact-check the intelligence gathered. Leonard explained Bloodstream could only control his own blood and could not telekinetically control others' blood unless infected first. He could not generate mass from thin air, which was why he needed hosts to duplicate himself. Mr. Wave asked if there was any voodoo doll mumbo-jumbo involved, expressing his dislike for such. Ace agreed, having had enough with manic plague. Leonard continued that Bloodstream could only manage a few clones at a time, with a highest recorded peak of 10 doubles. If they exceeded that limit, the clones absorbed each other to reduce numbers, probably to prevent individual thoughts. He could only affect humans. Stitch raised his hand and interrupted, respectfully stating Leonard was wrong. Meanwhile, Len was selecting books to bring to the sub when an explosion resonated outside. The boathouse trembled as a metal panel fell on the Leica and bounced off its hull. Len stumbled, dropping some books safely on the pier, but her copy of Lenin's The State and Revolution sank into the pond. Her father did not answer her calls amid the smell of smoke and flames carried inside by the wind. Someone opened the boathouse door, carrying a backpack full of canned food. Ryan appeared exhausted, as if he had run for miles, and told Len they had to go because the carnival was there. Her worst fear had come true. Another explosion echoed in the distance like a bombardment. Len realized it was her father's last body. If they killed him now. She tried to speak, but Ryan said he was delaying them and grabbed her books off the floor. They had to leave. Len asked where they would go. Looking into Ryan's eyes, she understood. She refused, hoping her father would defeat them. Many had tried and failed before, her father always came back, always beat the odds. The carnival would fail like the others. Ryan insisted they run, telling her father could not beat them all. He leapt onto the sub and moved toward the hatch, urging Len to activate it, assuring her father would catch up soon. Len hesitated but followed, opening the hatch and slipping inside the cramped sub. It had only 3 rooms, machinery at the back, supplies storage, and living space. Len had sacrificed space for efficiency, keeping only a bunk bed by a small porthole and the control panel. It had taken days to scavenge a computer screen and keyboard. Len asked how the carnival had found them and if they had followed Ryan. He admitted he had not been careful. Something in his unapologetic tone made her pause. She interrupted her work to look at him and saw guilt in his gaze. She accused him of leading them there. He did not deny it. She called him Riri, and he told her firmly that her father was sick in the head. Len hissed that she knew, but Ryan interrupted, saying nothing mattered if they did not flee because her father would kill them, especially her. She protested that he would not, recalling she had had her elixir for weeks and he had never done anything. Ryan countered that not yet was not never. Len trembled with rage, asking if he would let her father die, strand him on shore, and let the carnival slay him. Ryan tried to explain that they did not need her father and that he could make Len happy. They could start anew, just the 2 of them. She asked how, shaking her head, saying they could not defend themselves. He said she was a genius and he had his elixir, they could take care of themselves. She called the plan madness. He admitted it was madness from the start, but the best they had, reaching for her. She hissed, pushing him away and backing against the porthole. Ryan froze, hurt by her rejection. She demanded to know why. He snapped it was for them. She tearfully accused him of wanting her all for himself. He insisted he wanted her alive. His words made her flinch as if slapped. She looked into Ryan's eyes and saw concern. She realized he acted not for himself but for her. He loved her as much as she loved him. A part of her wanted to follow his plan, to drop everything and take the submarine to the sea, embarking on an adventure around the world with only the 2 of them. But every time she looked at the monster her father had become, she remembered the kind man he once was, the man who always smiled at her and her brother, the one who comforted Len when their mother left. Occasionally, the man re-emerged, and in those brief moments, his daughter felt hope. She pleaded with Ryan, saying that as long as her father lived, there was a chance he could heal. Despite everything, Len could not bring herself to hate him. Len avoided Ryan's disappointed gaze and told him she could not proceed without her father. His intense, baleful stare made her shiver as anger, disappointment, and sadness flashed across his face before resignation set in. Ryan instructed her to put the submarine on autopilot and warned that if they were not back in 20 minutes, both he and her father would be dead. He explained that once autopilot was engaged, it could not be disabled. He urged her to leave, warning that if he stayed, they might all be killed to ensure Bloodstream was truly gone. As Ryan moved toward the hatch, Len whispered for him to come back. He paused, looked over his shoulder, and told her to live before exiting the submarine. Len activated the autopilot, set the timer, and waited. Leo frowned, questioning how the target's power could have no upper limits. Stitch confirmed that their target was not limited to human hosts. Anything with a circulatory system could be infected, including the entire animal kingdom. There appeared to be no biological limit on the number of active clones, with restrictions being purely psychological. Leonard fought the urge to become a living son again to chase away his fear. Stitch's words confirmed the danger. Matthias questioned why the target kept only a dozen doubles if they shared a pseudo-hive mind and why they attacked each other. The Cossack suggested it was because the target hated himself deep down, what he had become. Freddy Sabino's psychological traumas crippled his power, preventing him from fully using his unlimited potential. Ace exchanged a pale glance with Leonard, understanding the danger. She asked Stitch what would happen if the target went all out. Stitch confirmed he would become a pandemic, devastating Italy within days unless quarantined. If he assimilated birds or fish, the bloodstream plague could infect the entire Earth's biosphere within months, with only abnormal genomes like Augustus surviving. The extinction event Pythia warned about was imminent. Bloodstream would not just destroy life on Earth, he would become life itself. A deathly silence followed, broken by the Cossack who asked if the trigger was the daughter's death rather than the brother's. Leonard confirmed that Pythia's data was broad and the future ever shifting, but if Len Sabino died, her father would trigger the extinction event. Stitch explained the target would lose all psychological restraints and go on a rampage, hating the world more than himself. Ace whispered sadly that the prophecy predicted Len Sabino's death unless they intervened. The Cossack insisted that Bloodstream had to die no matter the cost. Mr. Wave protested, forbidding harm to the children. Leo acknowledged their only advantage was that Bloodstream did not understand the full extent of his ability. fatalities. He ordered the team to slay all clones quickly and move the children to safety. Ace was to evacuate the wounded, while Stitch and Matthias remained in reserve. Matthias protested, but Leo dismissed his concerns, warning that his range was too short and one hit would be fatal. The battle was ongoing when Ryan exited the boat club. He located the battlefield by following the smoke rising into the sky. His plan had been simple: take no precautions during the supply run, ensure the carnival's flyers noticed him, and let them follow him back to their hideout. He worried they might expect a trap if approached directly, but the scheme had worked until now. Ryan knew the plan was insane from the start, a desperate last attempt to escape an impossible situation. Len refused to budge even after he forced her hand. Now the dominoes were set, and he could not undo their fall. Could only end in tears unless... Ryan looked at the elixir, the strange power in a syringe that had caused pain and wonders alike. Perhaps Bloodstream was right that it was the devil's work or a gift from above. Regardless, it was Ryan's only hope. He slammed the syringe into his arm and prayed for a miracle. The world turned purple as time slowed to a crawl. Raindrops froze midair, lightning scarred the sky, and Ryan moved silently, unaware of his footsteps. He instinctively halted time itself, much like a player pausing a video game.